Hello everyone and welcome to today's live stream. Today what we're going to be talking about is the 5 keys to unlocking a work culture for positive conflict. And at first I can hear you saying, I can hear what's going on in your brain. Conflict, we don't have conflict in our workplace, right? When everything's going great, we think that this doesn't exist. But what I'm going to tell you today is that there's 5 simple things that you can do to make sure that conflict, even if it's not at that high level, is being addressed. What I've learned in my many years of learning and mediation and change management is that every single workplace has conflict, even if it doesn't appear that way. Now, for each person, conflict is going to come at a different level, at a different stage, and how you're associating those words to your experiences is where differences come on your team. But no matter what those differences are, what's important is how you get ahead of them, how you address them before they become big issues that require mediators, facilitators, things beyond the general staff training to come in and address. Now, we've seen it all. We've seen everywhere from coming in to coach somebody to help close up their leadership gaps, all the way to bullying and harassment cases being brought to directors and CEOs and executives because these things haven't been done. Wouldn't it be fantastic if you had those key tools and skills so that you know that even if conflict happens, you knew how to address it? You were already on top of things. You're already a fantastic leader and you do so many things right. Let's put a few more tools in that tool belt to make you become even more effective. What we don't want to happen, and what we've seen time and time again, is leaders that think that this is dialed in, they have this under control, and then something goes sideways and things just all of a sudden come out of nowhere. I don't want that for you. You deserve so much better. So today I'm going to cover those 5 key things that you can do to create that positive work culture that embraces conflict and does not hide from it, because you're better than that. Right? The first thing is creating psychological safety. And I know you're thinking, oh, like that's just jargon. I hear that all the time. But if people truly don't feel safe to disagree with you out of fear of rejection or judgment, that's a problem. And you may not even be seeing it. Leaders need to model vulnerability and be willing to admit their own mistakes. If you're naive and think everything is going fantastic, that's dangerous because your team doesn't think that they can be human, that they can be vulnerable. So looking back at what's happened in your past, maybe you're not willing to share what's happening currently on your team or within your organization. But being able to reflect and talk to your team about things that haven't went so great in the past, right? I know for myself, I'm not perfect, and looking at hindsight, being able to reflect on things that have happened, mistakes that I have made, that's where some of the greatest learnings happen for the people that I've worked with. When I can teach through my experience, through what I've gone through personally, through what I've helped other people through. For those coaching clients that have had tremendous transformation based on that perspective and the insight that only happens looking at things through a different perspective and with time. Those are some of the keys that create that psychological safety on your team. Key number 2, reframing conflict as an innovation fuel. Now, let me give you an example of this. I used to think conflict was terrible, right? Conflict was a bad thing. And when I teach my classes, that's the first thing that students say. Conflict's bad, right? That's when people get angry. That's when they get upset. That's when relationships get severed. So being able to pause in that moment and figure out, well, why does conflict have that negative connotation? What's going on? And unpacking that. It helps us take from conflict is bad to maybe conflict's the fuel we need. So as an example, I was coaching this one woman and we were out for a walk. That's how we enjoyed doing our coaching sessions, was going for walks out in nature together. And as we were walking, we started talking about a situation that was happening with one of her new employees. And what had happened was there was this big project that he was put in charge of. So excited, young employee, super stoked to be doing this. And then the time came to release the project, to share what their findings were, to put it out into the public. And because of her position, because of her authority, she put her name as the first person listed on the document. At the time, she didn't think anything of it. She thought, this is how things go. This is what we've always done. And talking to her, she needed strategies for how to approach this gentleman who was upset that he had put in all this work, all this time, all this effort, just to wind up having his name appear after hers. He was upset and was threatening to quit. But she knew how much value he had, so knew that she needed to create a different type of conversation. So during that first coaching session, we came up with some different tools and strategies that she could go, a bit of a framework for her to have this conversation. Now, an interesting pivot happened when we had our second conversation. She brought up the fact that when she was first in her position, there was a gentleman that was running the organization. And they were working on a project together, and she had put in so much work. She put in tons of time, was working overtime, really put her heart on the line. She dove deep into this project. And when the time came to make it public, he insisted on putting his name first. And this is where I'm like, I get chills thinking back to this moment with this woman. Because in that moment, she had such a light bulb moment when I was able to say, oh, interesting. Let's think back to the last coaching conversation that we had. And I watched her eyes get wide, and all of a sudden her shoulders dropped. And she was like, oh my goodness, I know exactly how my staff member felt when I wanted to put my name first. Because I was so upset after I put in so much time, so much effort getting this project together, to then have somebody swoop in and put their name first. And that created that moment of awareness that it was okay to disagree with that staff member, to go back to him and bring this awareness, and to look and go, okay, now with perspective, we may have conflicting ideas over whose name should go first. And that's fantastic, because now we can dive in to why this is important for each of us. It wasn't about making it a bad conversation. It was about, how do we create this breakthrough thinking that will lead to better answers, more clarity, more understanding. And her ability to go back and have that conversation with her staff member completely changed the way that both of them were approaching the situation. It diminished the hurt feelings. It developed an understanding. It allowed other team members to come in and work with them to figure out, how should we be doing this going forward? Because we don't want anyone on this team to feel like their efforts don't matter, or like they're a second place when it comes to publishing this information. Why does the order matter? And what's going to be best for the program and for the individuals? And that's something that they could only come up with on their own. They needed their own unique situation that wouldn't necessarily apply to every other workplace. And the transformation was huge on her team. All right, now for the third key. Establish clear engagement rules. I was reading a book recently and it was really interesting. I think that it was the new book by Mel Robbins. It was Let Them. And like this is what pops into my head when it's about establishing those engagement rules. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to not see eye to eye, but sometimes we have to have those conversations. And it's not the conversations that matter the most, it's how we are willing to show up and engage, and how to bring our best person forward, put our best foot forward in these conversations. And the tools and the skills that you're going to do that are going to be different for each individual and for each organization. But without having these tools, you're going to default when things escalate, when you're triggered, when you're heightened. And that's why these rules of engagement are so important. How do we show up in a room with one another? What is the culture like here? It's great to have it all written down on paper and to have the employee handbook. But when push comes to shove, what is acceptable and not acceptable based on who is in the room? Getting really clear on those is so important. And without these norms, even well-intentioned conflicts can spiral into dysfunction. This is why every mediation, every conversation, even every training that I do, right up front, we set up, what are going to be our rules? How are we holding each other accountable within this? Because if you're getting deep, if you're trying to gain understanding, someone's going to rub someone the wrong way. And that's okay. As long as we know how to deal with it, unpack it, and we're all showing up with the intention of being our best selves and bringing the best out of one another. So really making sure to establish these key engagement rules is really what you need. All right. For the fourth key, we're going to build these conflict resolution skills. Now, when I first got into training, I thought, you know what? I know how to deal with conflict. It's everybody else that's struggling. And if I can figure out how to impart on them how they should behave, how they should think, how they should act, if only they could see things from my perspective, oh my goodness, like everybody would then just get it, right? Yeah, let me know in the chat below. Have you ever encountered one of these people, or have you been there before? Type yes in the chat if you're like, yes. If other people would just get it, oh my goodness, my life would be so much easier. But here's what I learned by taking my time and investing in training is that the self-awareness skills that I needed, I didn't even know that I was lacking. I thought I was a great listener, just like so many of the people that we work with do. And I don't think there's a person out there that would go, yeah, I'm really terrible at listening, right? Bringing these self-awareness tools and skills and strategies makes such a difference because we don't know what we don't know until someone points it out. There's a reason it's called a blind spot because you don't see it, right? Unless we take the time, we're driving forward. Oh my goodness, I know so many of you have told me how busy you are. You are full facing forward. You are driving in one direction towards your mission, towards your vision. You have so much stuff to do. You can't worry about the stuff on the peripheral. But for anyone that drives, you know, every once in a while, you have to check that rearview mirror. You have to check your side mirror. Where are my blind spots? What am I missing? Right? What's my team missing? What's somebody else not seeing? Right? Even though you may have went and got all the tools and training and skills, it doesn't mean that your team's equipped. And I was having this conversation with someone yesterday about how our own leadership abilities can sometimes mask the abilities of our team. So by going through and the leader having all these skills, it's fantastic. All that self-awareness, brilliant. That's what every single leader should strive for, is brushing up on this, making sure that they're closing their blind spots, shoring up their gaps. But you may actually be so good at your job that your team isn't getting that skill set. Most people's conflict resolution and communication skills tap out at about an 8-year-old level, which is shocking. That means most people's self-awareness, most people's toolkit doesn't develop after elementary school, they're falling into habits, old ways of being, or relying on other people in their lives to help them navigate things. And that's scary. If you're trying to develop the next generation of leaders, which I've spoken to so many people, that's exactly what you're trying to do. Create that legacy, strengthen your team, teach them. How are they going to show up as a leader? But if you're doing the work for them and they're not gaining the self-awareness, if they're not gaining the tools, the skills in a way that works for them, in a way that resonates with them, then once you're not there, it's not going to be very constructive. And that's where we find leaders, oh my goodness, some of the strongest ones that have these skill sets. Everything is going great as long as they're in the room. But the second they're out of the project, when they go on vacation, when they need to leave the organization, that's when everything falls off the rails and hits the fan. So important to be looking and going, okay, I may have this skill set, but is my ability masking or veiling the issues that my team doesn't know how to resolve on their own? So looking at where do you need to put your money? Who do you need to invest in? Of course, my suggestion is your entire team, because they need to be elevated. But how are they with their active listening? How are they with receiving and giving feedback in a positive, productive manner? Can they separate their positions and their interests and find win-win solutions, not just compromise? I get a little bit, you get a little bit, and we all leave a little bit upset and a little bit happy. These aren't just soft skills. And you know that from working with people and caring about people. These are not the soft skills. These are the essential business critical capabilities that every person needs in the workplace right now. Especially as tech starts taking over and becoming more ingrained, being able to interact with people is absolutely vital. And I know you know that. All right, we have made it to number 5. And if you've made it here, fantastic. Big, huge high fives for you for showing up, making time for this, and getting all the way to number 5. I know that you're committed to helping your team. Thank you so much for being here. So let's dive into number 5. You need to make sure that you are rewarding constructive dissent. Constructive dissent, that sounds terrible, Crystal. What are you talking about? You don't want a team of yes men or yes women or yes people. You want a team that is willing to stand up and say, this doesn't sit right. This doesn't feel right. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with the approach. I don't agree. That is fantastic. The more voices, the more opinions, the larger breadth of knowledge that you can get voicing their opinions, the better. This is one thing that I loved about my change management certificate was we were sitting there talking about these individuals that while you're going through a change go, I don't like that. I don't agree with it. I'm not on board with it. And the perception at the time was, well, they can get off the boat because we're going forward, or we'll just ignore them and hope that one day they come along. Like, let's just ignore them. Eventually they'll be behind, but they'll come forward. I laugh because these can be some of your most valuable assets and resources if you know how to channel them. There's a reason people say what they do, and thank goodness they are speaking up. Because if they didn't, if they kept their mouths shut, that means that they're signed out. They are checked out and they don't care anymore. And being apathetic is one of the worst things that can happen. You want to see productivity plummet? Have an apathetic workforce. It is one of the worst things that can happen to an organization, is people showing up for the paycheck and not caring. By rewarding constructive dissent, you start reshaping the way that they are showing up to the conversations. You're saying, yeah, thank you for sharing that you see issues that I didn't see. You're saying, yes, it is okay to not agree with me as a leader. We have different views. We have different opinions. We have different ideas and backgrounds. Now, how can we merge those together to create something even better? When there's constructive dissent, it means everyone still wants the best thing for the organization. They just see a different path to get there. And maybe that's good. Maybe you need to take path A for a while and then jog through the trees and get on path B for a little bit because somebody sees there's a hornet's nest waiting on path A. Hugely important, right? It reinforces healthy conflict. And I know, again, that conflict, it can be a trigger word for some, but healthy disagreement, right? It's healthy to not see everything the same way. And I know that you see it. I know that society gets this because if we didn't, diversity, equity, and inclusion wouldn't exist. Having a rich perspective, having a diversity on your team, you're going to run into disagreements. But instead of shutting them down, because I've seen this way too much, the disagreements, the person that's tagged the negative person gets shut down and they stop speaking up and issues don't get caught. Problems pop up that, realistically could have been caught if you would have paused and looked at stuff from a different perspective. How might this impact our volunteers? How might it impact our clients? How's that going to hit finances? What does that look like when we go to apply for funds? What other impact is it going to have on another department we're taking this money away from? All so crucial to understanding you do not just want the positive. So celebrate that, right? Create stories about times when disagreement saved the company from mistakes, right? These are so important to the integrity of your organization and they build the cultural DNA of your organization, right? We want people to make mistakes. We want people to speak up, right? That's all stuff that you want. So I know we've gone through a lot today. Quick recap, the things that we've covered today. Your 5 keys are going to be unlocking that psychological safety, reframing conflict as innovation fuel, establishing clear rules for engagement, building conflict resolution skills across your entire team, and then rewarding that constructive dissent. Awesome. So if you have enjoyed today, please know I'm going to be here every single Thursday. Once a month, Jeanette will be joining me. So she is my business partner and co-founder of Korero Solutions. If after today you're thinking, oh my goodness, Crystal, I think that we have some gaps, or I'm not too sure, but I think that we could elevate our team, right? I think that we need a few of these keys embedded into our workplace, but I don't know how. That's why we're here. I'm going to drop a link below. Make sure to go and check it out if you want to work with us. Pop on a phone call. Let's see if we're a good fit for your organization. The next link that I'm going to pop in is we have a nonprofit leadership journal. Go and check it out. I've heard from so many of you and I get it. You are so busy. You are charging forward. Again, that car metaphor. You can't see what's going on all around. This journal is going to allow you to take a purposeful pause for 5 minutes, only 5 minutes, at the beginning of the week to dial into some of these questions that you may not have asked your staff or yourself before, to get really purposeful and understand why you're showing up as a leader. Where some areas are that you're doing fantastic and other areas that maybe you could do a little bit better. Go and grab that link. The journal, the PDF version is free, so go and check that out. I would love to hear how you're using it in your workplace, how it resonates with you. And again, I'm going to be here every single Thursday, so come and check us out. I look forward to seeing you all next week.